Alright guys, this video is going to be my impressions on Mages in 5.3 as a returning player. Um, Last time I played was 3.5 when Warborns were released. I played during that fresh start, and played that before then. I played like early, like when the game first launched for only a few months. Um, Overall, I think Mages right now are pretty strong. I didn't at first think they were pretty strong. But my opinion did change to them being quite strong. So let's talk about what changed about mages. They got a new skill tree, Malediction. Mana stars were moved here and renamed mana bolts, and they moved a lot of the abyssal skills that were previously in other skills to this one, and they changed how they worked. Overall, I think Malediction by itself is an okay tree. I don't think you'd take it by itself for damage. Don't think it has enough consistent damage to make it work. But in conjunction with sorcery, I think it becomes stupidly strong. So let's talk about what Malediction does. The entire point of Malediction, like the niche of it, is to build malice charges similar to like Shadowplay, and it's deadly charges, whatever the hell they're called. So if you use your little buff, you get one every few seconds. And also, if you use your mana stars, you get more charges faster. Now, I think the buff system in general is worse than in Shadowplay, because Shadowplay you just had to use your Rapid Strike, but in Mana and Malediction you have to actually use Fury to get anything, other than being crit, but you don't really want to be hit. So that is something you have to think about. Overall, I think the buffs you get from the Malice charges are quite strong, so it is worth running Fury. Like, the skills by themselves don't do that much damage without Malediction charges. Like, that does, what, 3k? Yeah, around 3k on someone that's level 33, and I have 938 magic power, which isn't a lot now, but, like, I don't have no magic power. But with Malediction charges, let's just build some up real fast. Now if I use it, it does 23k. So I think Malice, unless you have Malediction charges, you shouldn't be using your cooldowns without, because they get significantly stronger if you get Malice charges. And obviously, there are some busted things in this class. I think, for one, I think Crashing Waves is quite strong. I think it changes Mana Stars into something that they should not be, which is a skill shot essentially that does a lot of damage. And then Malicious Bindings is also quite strong, only because Defiance, which is the skill that everyone gets now to break CC, doesn't work on them. So you can essentially trap a melee in here and they can never touch you, at least for the 5 seconds of the duration of the skill. So you'll be able to cast all your big cast times on them, and they can't really do much about it. So those are my opinions on Malediction. I think Malediction by itself is a good support tree, but I don't think it's a good damage tree. I think Fury, this makes it too inconsistent as a damage tree by itself. Now let's talk about Sorcery. Sorcery was changed quite a bit. I don't take Art Lightning anymore, but I didn't really take Art Lightning prior because it was too long of a cast time and not enough damage. But it no longer combos with like lightning damage itself to do more damage. So it's kind of like, if you're running Fireball, you may take it, but I'm not running Fireball, so I opt out to taking it. I don't see a reason to take it. So that's kind of garbage. And also, they changed, I think this is new. I did not believe you could deep freeze someone with just ice bolt, arrow, like the freezing arrow and freezing earth, but I might be wrong about that. These skills are the same and they still fucking suck. Frigid Tracks works essentially the same. You just don't. You're very less reliable on it now that these two combo into it. God's Whip has always been amazing. It's still amazing. Insulating Lens, they did change again. For in 3.5, they changed it to being an instant cast, but just giving you HP for like 20 seconds or something. Now they changed it to a cast time, but it now prevents trip again. And also, if it breaks, like if the enemy breaks it, you get a snare in a 6-meter radius around you. So that's kind of useful. It also combos with Chain Lightning to stun, which is great. Not this version of Chain Lightning, but the other versions. Witchcraft, I feel like they gutted pretty badly. A lot of combos are gone. Purge no longer gives you magic defense, so there's no reason to run this as a tank anymore. There's no stuns in Witchcraft. I don't believe anything stuns anymore. Everything just fears. I might be wrong. Nope, it looks like everything just fears and snares and the bubble trap. I haven't really used a lot of these skills. The ones I've really used are the ones I have on now. I think Mirror Warp being moved here is great. I think it makes more skill viability great, which I love. But other than that, Witchcraft, it's something you're gonna put very few points into, unless you're going for CC. Now let's look at some of the other classes that changed for mages. We're gonna be talking about Shadowplay. I see a lot of mages use Shadowplay still. I don't really understand why. I think Shadowplay is kind of bad for mages now. You don't get much out of it, and it's not like stealth is not a reason alone to run this. Neither is backdrop. So what skills I would take are Drop Back, Stalker's Mark, Free Runner, and then maybe Leech, but Leech no longer sleeps. It just steals buffs, and a lot of these other skills just don't work for Mage anymore. Like Overwhelm used to stun, it no longer stuns, but it does do damage. But if you're not going a mixed build, I see no reason to run it. I used to run Throw Dagger too, which I still think it would be useful to have, but you have to put 6 points into fucking Shadowplay to get it, so it's not really worth it. And these buffs you get are attack speed, which is fine, like Invasion too, but they're not something that's going to help you do more damage. Like, they're going to help you do more auto attacks and maybe cast a bit faster. Your spells aren't going to hit harder with these. So that's really the reason why I just don't take them anymore. Don't take Shadowplay anymore. Oromancy, I think still is useful for mages. Like Teleport being a skill that's always useful. I think Thwart now changing to basically like a damage reduction. It's kind of like Divine Shield, I would say, from a card game. It like blocks up to that amount of damage, kind of. And then Magic Shield is very useful for other mages fights. Awaken's always useful. This would be useful for PvE. The stun is okay, I think, but I don't think I would ever use it anymore. You need 5 points into it. Implosion's fine, but like they did change this tree a little bit more. But I do think it's still okay for mages simply because teleport's useful. I think if they got rid of teleport, it probably would be no reason to take this class as a mage at least. Let's see. Let's go to Oromancy for Occultism now. I think this class got changed a lot. They got rid of Mana Bolts. And they added Crippling Mire, the auto attack, I guess. And they added Shadow Step and Play Dead to this class. Shadow Step is an odd choice to run for mages, because Shadow Step, you don't typically want to get close to the enemy unless you're going to kill them, like with a Frigid Tracks. So this could work for an AoE, like a cheese kind of class, where you Shadow Step and then Frigid Tracks into Meteor, and then like just do damage. But other than that, I don't really see a reason any mage would take this. Like this seems more suited for a melee, since Shadow Step, Summon Crows into Hell Spear is a great option for engaging someone. And then Absorb Life being a stun after they break the 20 meters tether range is also great, so you can re-engage. Pain Harvest, I'm not sure how this works exactly. I've seen videos where it's pretty good for healers, but I don't know if it's still good or not. And then the Play Dead all now combos with Death's Vengeance to make it instantly cast. So I could see like a kamikaze build being made out of this, where you just go in and just try to blow up like 6-7 people with like Death's Vengeance casted twice. But otherwise, I don't see a real reason to run Occultism as a typical mage. Then the last tree I'm going to talk about is actually Songcraft. I think Songcraft is pretty good now. I think it's like a lot better now, since the Zeal passive is you only need 4 points in to get it, and only 5 points in to get the big buff for sustained music. Like the attack speed is great. Critical Discord is basically a Stalker's Mark. That does magic damage and now is an instant cast. And then these would be great for like PvE. I haven't really used Starling Strain, and I have not used. I mean, Double Times is the quick. These are just utility moves, and I have not really used Sonic Wave either. But I don't think Songcraft is a bad option for PvE. I think it's actually a very good option for PvE. I don't think it's a bad option for PvP. But you may want to get rid of Malediction to have 1 or 2 like gap closures. Now that we talked about the classes or the tree lines in general, we're talking about the ancestral skills. The ones that I'm going to talk about are mostly from Sorcery, Witchcraft, and Malediction. I think Sorcery, I don't think these are good. The Firebolt ancestral skills, I think, are worse than the base Fireball. I mean, I know some people are probably going to disagree with me on that, but I think hit being lightning is bad. Reason being is you can no longer combo with Arc Lightning. You need it for the fire. You need the fire to make the lightning do more damage. So maybe they didn't really think about that. So previously, when these were actually comboed, like Arc Lightning and God's Whip with lightning damage, this would have been great. But now I think it's whatever. The big Flame Bolt, I mean, it's okay. It's probably the best option of these two, but I probably still wouldn't use it. Because I don't value fire that much. Because I don't really run anything that needs fire other than God's Whip. So Chain Lightning, I usually run the fire one for God's Whip specifically to have some sort of damage boost. But the ice one, in my opinion, is worse. So you don't really have an option. I think the ice one's like the effect is that you get like a AoE around it, and that AoE then freezes enemies, like that little AoE. But it's not good in like skirmishes unless they're sitting next to each other, which they shouldn't be. So I don't really see a reason to run it. It may be good in Mage Ball or something garbage like that, but like in normal skirmishes or 1v1s, I don't see a reason to run it. Meteor. Meteor Strike, the lightning now is an instant cast. This is now an instant cast. I think it's okay, I'll be honest. It not being an instantly going down and hitting is kind of bad, because then they have to stay in the circle, and it's a small circle. So it's not like God's Whip, where you can kind of like hit you're going to hit them, you can just kind of like place your screen generally in their direction, it's going to hit. The Meteor is going to need a bit more precision. I think the Ice version is superior, and it's the version I use. It is a 3.5 second cast time, and it actually has a second cast bar, kind of. I don't want to call it a channel, but I guess it is a channel. But if you just go in and cast it in that circle, they're going to take a lot of damage, and if they hit 5 times, they're going to deep freeze. And you saw a little cast bar as it was coming down. If that gets interrupted, this no longer does damage. The animation still goes through, but it just doesn't do damage. I haven't got to Ancestral level 10, so I can't really play with this yet, sadly. But let's talk about Malediction. Manus Bolts, or whatever, are great. I don't use the AoE one simply because I value the single target damage more than the movement speed. But I'm sure it's great for PvE farm or AoE farming. This is an interesting one, Blade Flaw. I've seen people use the lightning one because it comes down faster, but I personally think the Bladefall Flame is better. Reason being is because it takes less malediction charges, and the malediction charges are kind of very important for malediction to be useful. I think getting enough malediction charges to make your blade fall strong off one rotation of mana bolts is very good, and that like trumps the other speed of it. Witchcraft. Now Witchcraft is good. In the ancestral are very good. This makes it the lightning version makes it an instant cast essentially. If you take the fourth passive in Witchcraft, which I do not have Witchcraft on right now. That is my bad. Witchcraft. So if you take the fourth passive, like right now it has a 0.4 second cast time, but the fourth passive decreases the cast time of Earthen Grip by 0.5. So if you take enough points to make it get to the fourth passive, this now becomes an instant cast, and that is fantastic. So then Bubble Trap, honestly I don't know really much about Bubble Trap. I don't use it that much. It's alright. But I don't see a reason to hit it because the Meteor doesn't hit it while they're in Bubble. And Art Lightning does, but I don't run Art Lightning, so I don't really use Bubble Trap that often. Pinchy's Veil, I think this one's really good. The Mist version, because it now is a, like, you throw it, and that monster, like, applies fear every time it ticks, like that. So I think that's a very good. So a combo I use, actually, is, I think, the class I'm currently using right now, I think is going to be the new Dagger spell, where it has low mobility, but does a lot of damage, and has a lot of setup time. So, I don't know if I talked about this skill yet, but this skill right here prevents them from moving in that red circle. And guess what? Your meteor is just about the size of the circle. So if you're able to cast it before the timer runs out, which is 5 seconds, you'll be able to get them down. Like, you'll be able to hit this pretty consistently. The problem with this skill, and I think why I think it's going to be probably heavily nerfed, is because Defiance doesn't work on it. Defiance is the skill that everyone gets that CC breaks, but it doesn't work on this skill. It says all confinement effects, but this does not work. I'm not sure if that's a glitch or if that's intended, but that's probably something they're going to fix, so it's probably going to get patched. But a big combo I use is Earthen Grip into Fear into a Snow. The reason why I do that into the Fear is because if they're a Bond Breaker, like if they have Bond Break out of Battle Rage, they could just break out of the Earthen Grip. But they don't have a Fear Break, most likely. So they'd be able to get CC'd and stay in one spot and be able to hit them with the Meteor Strike. Now, if they use Defiance, that's an issue. But you can just always cast Malicious Binding, and then they can't do anything about it. So I think this is probably going to be pretty cancer. It's probably not going to be these exact skills. I think someone else who's better than me is probably going to be able to mix the skills a bit more, make it a bit more optimized. But, like, I think Blight Caster's probably going to be a pretty strong, like, 1v1 mage. I don't see how you beat them, I'm going to be honest, since this just does so much damage. Meteor Strike. And if they're able to hit you with 5 charges, defreeze, so then they get another setup, it just chains off itself. It seems a little bit ridiculous. But overall, I think mages are strong, very strong. I initially thought they were weak since they got a lot of the self combos in sorcery, but now I think they're very strong, and I am very excited to see how my opinion changes in the future, playing a bit more. An issue that I've come across is, since I'm wearing cloth, if a melee, there's a lot of melees now. If a melee comes on me, I do kind of just get fucked because I don't run a one-handed shield. So what I might do is actually switch to leather, and that's because the buffs are essentially the same for leather, the big one, which is the skill damage and healing, and then you just get less mana and more HP, I believe. But that would be able to equalize your damage a bit more, and then you'd be able to focus more on bursting people down with the staff. But if you guys have any, opinions on leather mages, go ahead and leave it in the comment. It may not sound like natural to you if you play a lot of MMOs, since they typically use cloth. But I think in open world PvP, I think leather is probably going to be better for mages who use two-hander. And I plan on using a two-hander because I want the damage. But thanks for sticking around, and please tell me what you think about mages in the comments.